Let's give it up one more time for all of the amazing work the Therapy Fund is doing here in our state for Black and brown people. Before we bring up our amazing CEO, I would like to introduce our diamond sponsor, Coordinated Care, to say a brief word.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jess Malberg, and I'm the Senior Director of Behavioral Health Services at Coordinated Care. Coordinated Care is a managed care organization that serves Washington residents to include some of the most vulnerable and impacted adults and youth. I'm a mental health therapist by trade and am passionate about improving access to behavioral health across communities. At the core of our Coordinated Care community giving and healthcare workforce expansion scholarship work, we work to improve access to care, which we know unequally affects communities of color that experience disproportionate traumas by creating funding opportunities for individuals seeking healthcare professions through scholarship and improving health equity. Improving the health and well-being in communities of color requires more than just discussion, research, data. It requires our support of BIPOC-led and BIPOC-serving grassroots organizations like the Washington Therapy Fund Foundation and shifting economic resources to support BIPOC communities. I'm proud to be here today in support of this conference as a first of its kind in Washington, and I'm looking forward to engaging in humility and deep listening that we at Coordinated Care may prioritize healing of BIPOC individuals and create lasting change.
Thank you so much. I am honored to bring Ashley to the stage. Now, Ashley McGirt Adair is the founder and CEO of the Therapy Found Foundation. Give it up for that. We're gonna do. See what we're gonna do when we be going over these check marks with Ashley. We're gonna clap it up because there's something that speaks volumes about a Black woman handling their business out here. Okay, so we're gonna have to wake up now. Okay. Ashley is a psychotherapist, a TED Talks. Oh, yeah, come on, keep it going. A TED Talks international speaker, and an author that has been featured in Forbes, MSNBC, Young Turks. That's right. The Emmy Award-winning Converge Media, Bravo, and many more. Now, Ashley also offers presentation, workshops, group facilitation, and consulting, specializing in racial trauma, mental health, crisis response, social services, as well as racial equity. Okay. Ashley specializes in racial trauma. In addition to running the Therapy Fund, she is a speaker, consultant, and the owner of McGirt Counseling Services. And I am more than happy to call her my sister. Please give it up for my girl, Ashley McGirt Adair.
You did. I love you. I love that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction and acknowledgement of my body of work. As y'all seen, we started during COVID when I had those COVID-19 brows. Sis ain't got them today. But I'm so happy to be here in person with you all, especially coming out of the pandemic when we weren't able to produce live events. And the majority of our team still pretty much works 90% virtual. I know y'all have seen us out in the community more recent doing events, and we hope to continue stuff like this. So I have actually been putting on cultural awareness events for the past decade. They are not easy to produce. They can be extremely stressful, but they are necessary. And I go to a lot of conferences because I need those CEUs, and I know y'all need them too, so make sure you scan those QR codes and complete the survey by July 28th for those of you who need those continuing education credits. I say all of that to say, when I go to these conferences, I rarely see people who look like me presenting. I rarely see people who look like me in the room. The planning committee is often dominated by cisgendered white men, And I have a really hard time finding that they can be the expert on my trauma. And I really kept searching for something local with clinicians of color, and I couldn't find it. Often going to, the last conference I was at, my girl Yesenia over there was actually with me, and we were in Mexico, and it was predominantly Latinx community, a ton of people of color in that space. They're often in places like Atlanta, St. Louis, so I wanted to bring something with people of color to Washington State. And while the Therapy Fund Foundation is primarily focused on Black community members, as I'm the founder, I'm a Black woman, and this was started in light of the George Floyd protests, we do believe in curating events that are focused on other people of color as well. So we appreciate all of the beautiful Black and brown bodies in this room today, as well as our allies. So again, when it came to creating a behavioral health conference that was focused on improving mental health outcomes for people who looked like me and people who looked like you, since I couldn't find it, I knew I had to be the one to do it. So I really want to thank everyone on the planning committee, those of you who were able to attend here today, our youth ambassadors, our staff, Nasari, Jaquel, y'all are my right hand, Jesse, so many of you all who were able to help support. Here are the names of all of the individuals who hopped on our bi-weekly Zoom meetings. So we did this, gosh, since like January. We've been planning this. So I really just want to thank everyone, as well as some of our speakers who flew from across the country. Our keynote speaker who came all the way from New York City, Yesenia, who came from the East Coast as well. We've got Dr. Patrice, who will be here shortly, came from California. Several other people came from California to be here today. And I'm especially grateful for Dr. Patrice, who's going to be presenting the DSM-5 for the culture, because the DSM has been used as a tool to help people better understand their distress. But we have also to talk about how it's been a tool that's very much been used to harm communities of color. It's rooted in racism, ableism, and homophobia. And this conference is geared toward finding ways that we work through as healers, educators, and students. I also really want to thank each of you in this room for showing up today. When you produce events, there's always the concern of, is anyone gonna show up? I'm not even gonna lie, I was a little stressed looking at all those name tags. I'm like, there's like 90 people who ain't showed up. So what's going on? But y'all are here, and there's so many places that you could have chosen to be on a Friday morning in July. This is one of the biggest events in Seattle. We got Taylor Swift in town. The Seattle Storm is playing, and if y'all aren't aware, the Seattle Storm is actually one of our sponsors, so when you attend the games, you'll see us. We'll be at the game tomorrow, so we definitely root for them, and we are one of their community champions, so I'm really grateful for the Seattle Storm because they were one of the first corporations who actually sponsored us. Let's see, who else? I have so many people to thank, but who I really want to thank is the first 5 people who purchased tickets to this event. Because again, once you put those ticket sales up on Eventbrite, it's like, who gonna buy them, who gonna show? And to all y'all who was texting me last night, like, I'm showing up, I'm coming, like, we had these tickets on sale for months. But I appreciate you. So if Susan Leverage is in the building, Laura Escalana Flores, Lynette Bravo, Alameda Jones, Lalani Sims, and Rise for Us, Lanaya Grayson was the very first vendor who actually supported us. So raise your hand if any of you are here today. Thank you so much. It is truly an honor. When I saw your names come through, I was like, okay, people are vested, people are gonna show up. And because y'all are the first 5, I'm going to gift you with free tickets to next year's conference, because we are going to make this be an annual thing. So as long as y'all keep showing up, we're gonna keep doing it. This year's theme is reclaiming wellness, because wellness, joy, and abundance is our birthright. And there are so many behavioral health organizations who have helped, and there are also a lot of behavioral health organizations who have done a lot of harm in the community. So that is why I also wanted to make this be a resource fair and bring in some of the amazing behavioral health organizations in the community who are doing a lot of good things. So let's reclaim what has been stripped away through oppression, racism, and colonization as we come together as a collective to help improve mental health for communities of color. We also have to acknowledge that there are a multitude of ways of healing, and not all of them can be found in Western psychology. I'm hoping that you all will take what you learn here today and bring it back to your communities, your agencies, your schools, your private practices. There's this native poem that says, "Dear God, I have never heard of you. I was willing to give you a chance until I met your representative." Many of us are the representatives when it comes to healthcare. So raise your hand if you're in private practice. All right, give it up to my LMFTs, LICSWs, psychologists, psychiatrists, operating in private practice. Raise your hand if you're a student. Any students in the building? Okay, shout out to the students. Raise your hand if you're an educator. And Zoom, virtual audience, we ain't forget about y'all, so make sure you're putting in the comments if you're a student, you're an educator, if you work in an agency. We want to know who's in the room today, and we thank you for being here so much. So let's not be the representatives who turn folks away from healthcare and does more harm than good due to ignorance and an unwillingness to learn. Thank you. So, with that said, I want you all to close your eyes for a moment. This is a safe space. We've got security in the building, and nobody gonna do nothing to y'all. So just close your eyes for a moment if you feel comfortable. And with your eyes closed, picture someone who needs therapy. What are their needs? What do they look like? Who is their support system? Think about that. I want you to pull that image, and when you have that image, go ahead and open your eyes. Did you picture someone depressed? Did you picture someone anxious? Did you picture a student, a mom, a senior? Did you picture someone white? You don't have to share, but I want you to think about who came to mind and what they looked like. We know from the data that white people are more likely to receive therapy, while people of color are often left out because the profession of psychology and social work has been centered in whiteness. Part of reclaiming wellness is an effort to decolonize the health field and have better skills, individuals have the better skills and tools that they need in order to go out and do this work when working with communities of color. When we visualize depression, we often think of images portraying someone who is typically white, and we're accustomed to seeing the student, a struggling mom, someone who's newly divorced. We do not think of the physically disruptive Black boy growing up in the inner city who just watched his best friend get shot over the weekend. And we know here the amount of gun violence our community has been plagued with, especially directly impacting the Therapy Fund Foundation, as several members in our community who we were extremely close with, did business with, worked with, were slain to gun violence. I want to honor some of them here today. Devon Pickett Jr., I believe his wife may be here today, as well as Elijah Lewis. Elijah Lewis would write me all the time. I don't know where he got the energy. Oftentimes, I didn't have enough energy to write back to him. And he was always asking me, how did you start the Therapy Fund Foundation? I want to do something like that for individuals who've been slain and who didn't have the funds to pay for their funeral services. And then he ended up being murdered. So we do this work for the Elijah Lewises, the Devon Pickett Jr.'s, the George Floyds, for so many people in our community whose lives have been taken unnecessarily. So I want you to think about who we think about when we're thinking of who needs mental health access and depression. Are we thinking about that little Black boy who's watched his friends be murdered? Are we thinking about the 25-year-old Nigerian American who's a lesbian but loves Jesus, but because of her Christian upbringing, she can't come out? Are we thinking about the Asian American plagued by the stressors of being a model minority, forced to study the traditional sciences when they really just want to draw and make beautiful art? Do we think about the only African American woman in a management position who receives daily microaggressions in the workplace? I know her. She was me. This conference is for them, it's for us, it's for the children of color who are often labeled defiant for a legacy of historical trauma. It's for you to think deeply and critically about who are the founding fathers of psychology and why most universities will never mention names like Kenneth and Mamie Clark, Dr. Joy DeGruy, Dr. Beverly Tatum, Resmaa Menakem, and so many more. We must ask who has the power and privilege to conduct research and get funding and why. Colonized behavioral health says there is no other worldview, and we are here to disrupt that notion and advance health equity for all people. So thank you again for joining us at the Reclaiming Wellness inaugural Behavioral Health Conference.